I knew I was invisible the day Kyle unplugged the emergency kill switch and used it to charge his vape. That little red box is supposed to shut down the entire conveyor line in under 3 seconds if someone's sleeve gets caught or, God forbid, a body does. But there he was, squatting next to it like a frat goblin, muttering, chill, it's not like anyone ever uses this. I didn't say a word, just walked past, clipboard in hand, pretending to mark loadout weights while mentally logging yet another future obituary headline waiting to happen. I've worked in this warehouse 7 years, longer than the polished concrete's been sealed, and I've seen enough human stupidity dressed up as innovation to fill a nursing home bingo hall. Kyle was new. Fresh out of someone's nepotism pouch, plopped into a high-vis vest because his uncle, the VP, thought he needed real-world experience, kind of experience you can apparently gather while wearing Yeezys on a forklift floor. He showed up with a stack of culture memos and a whiteboard labeled FUN Space Ideas. His first decree was to clear the north wall for cornhole tournaments. His second was to move the SDS binders to a supply closet so they don't kill the vibe. I wish I was joking. Oh, and before I forget, if you're listening to this and find yourself smirking, thinking, yep, that's my office too, maybe go ahead and tap that subscribe button. Toss a like if you've ever had to quietly clean up someone else's disaster while smiling through your third HR write-up for tone. We don't ask often, but that support genuinely helps keep this chaos-powered train running. Back to Kyle. He never remembered anyone's name unless they were young, loud, or had an Instagram presence. He called Paul from shipping old guy, even though Paul could reverse load an 18-wheeler blindfolded in under 6 minutes. He called me compliance chick. I have a degree in industrial safety compliance, and I've been cited by name in 3 state-level warehouse safety recertification protocols. But sure, chick. It didn't take long before he started skipping pre-op safety meetings, claimed they were low vibe. I'd catch him cutting corners, literally, in the case of floor tape. He could install ping-pong tables in designated hazard zones. Every time I flagged an issue, it somehow came back to me as being our team player. I got written up for negativity after asking why our defibrillator was unplugged during his foam party Friday. At some point, I stopped fighting and started writing. I had a plain black notebook. No stickers, no tabs, just ink, dates, times, violations, cross-referenced with security cam timestamps when available, and a digital version mirrored to a private offsite drive just in case Kyle or his vape charger got any bright ideas. I wasn't plotting revenge. I was covering my ass. In places like this, the only thing that matters more than a voice is a receipt. The floor guys knew. Not officially, but they could tell. Rico started giving me heads-ups when machinery got assigned to untrained temps. Marcy in scheduling would accidentally CC me on shift coverage emails that showed we had high school interns moving pallet jacks solo. Nobody said anything outright. We've all seen what happens to troublemakers, but they watched me like someone who just might be able to pull the fire alarm when the real flames started. And deep down, I was hoping I wouldn't need to. Hoping Kyle would just settle into a routine, forget about prank days and hazard foam. Maybe, just maybe, let me get back to doing the job I was hired to do. But hope in places like this is a liability. The thing about being invisible is that no one notices when you're standing by the exits, quietly watching the building catch fire, or when you're the only one who remembers which corner the extinguisher's in. And Kyle was about to find out what happens when the compliance chick keeps better receipts than HR. Kyle got promoted the same week we had a near miss with a faulty baler, because apparently, nothing says leadership potential like forgetting to log a hydraulic leak and then blaming the janitor. They called it a strategic restructuring to inject new energy into operations. What it really was, nepotism in a high-vis vest. His uncle, the regional VP, made some comment about young blood and shaking things up in front of the warehouse staff, like we were an episode of The Apprentice. Kyle wore it like a gold medal, strutting across the floor with his Apple Watch glowing, AirPods jammed in, and a neon fanny pack slung across his chest like he was going to Coachella, not overseeing 23-ton machinery with kill zones. His first act as newly crowned site manager, replacing the lockout/tagout signage with motivational quotes on laminated cardstock. You haven't known fear until you're standing under a 2-ton pallet lift and see a paper sign reading, "Smile, it's Monday," zip-tied where the red warning placard used to be. Then came the culture calendar. Every Friday was now some deranged theme: pajama day, opposite day, trust fall Friday. He actually had us try Warehouse Olympics, which involved timed races between forklifts and hand trucks. I had to pull a temp out from under a half-loaded pallet because someone thought it would be funny to do the last leg blindfolded. I brought it up once in the weekly safety sync, suggested we run the events after hours, away from heavy machinery. Kyle blinked at me like I'd just asked him to recite the tax code. "God, you're such a buzzkill," he said, then laughed to the room. "Come on, compliance chick. Live a little." 3 hours later, I got an email from HR titled, "Feedback on Attitude." Apparently my concern for bodily harm was demoralizing. HR said they were excited about Kyle's new initiatives and suggested I embrace a growth mindset. Said they'd heard I'd been resistant to change and recommended I focus on opportunities, not obstacles. I closed the email, locked my screen, and sat there staring at the emergency exit plan on the wall like it was a map to another planet. I wasn't scared, exactly. I've seen enough management fads blow through to know most of them collapse under their own hashtags. But this felt different. This wasn't a new software rollout or a lean efficiency sprint. This was structural rot being painted with glitter, and I was being told to smile while the beams cracked. That night, I opened the digital backup of my log, created a new folder, named it Kyle Changes. I wasn't planning anything, not yet, just documenting. Because you learn early in jobs like this, jobs where safety is the only thing between someone going home or going to the ER, that talking gets you branded. But tracking keeps you sane. Tracking is neutral, safe. The janitor, Glenn, started warning me when he found empty beer cans in the recycle bins Monday mornings. Rico, the floor lead, started nodding grimly when he walked past Kyle's prank prep stations. But no one said a word. The mood shifted slowly, like a pressure drop before a storm. Forklifts sat idling longer. Cameras got mysteriously unplugged. Lockouts were skipped just this once because Kyle didn't want to delay loading for his influencer livestream walkthrough. I stopped eating in the break room. Started spending lunch in the corner of the security room, earbuds in, eyes on the screens, watching things go sideways in real time. One day, Kyle brought in a karaoke machine for Sing Your Heart Out Wednesday. Someone set it up on the mezzanine above the conveyor zone. The mic cord dangled down like a garrote. I watched the new HR girl clapping along while a temp belted out Livin' on a Prayer. And I thought, yeah, we are. It happened during warehouse prank wars, which, yes, is exactly as idiotic as it sounds. Kyle decided we needed friendly chaos to build morale, so he handed out Nerf guns, silly string, and GoPros to all the floor managers. Said whoever filmed the funniest prank would win a $50 DoorDash gift card and manager bragging rights. It was supposed to be harmless. Water balloons, confetti buckets rigged above the time clock. Harmless, until it wasn't. I was in the loft office updating our quarterly compliance log when I saw the camera feeds flicker. Just for a second, then they popped back on. Feed 4, East Forklift Lane, zoomed slightly and refocused. That was odd. The cameras are hard-mounted. No one should have been adjusting them. Then I heard the air horn. Not one of ours, the high-powered Marine Grade 1 Kyle bought for his warehouse Olympics opening ceremony. That sound shook the rafters. I looked at the monitors just in time to see a junior tech, Jose, maybe 19 and barely trained, backpedaling into a loading dock wall, eyes wide as a forklift barreled toward him. There was no driver. It was set to idle roll, low gear, just enough to scare him. Someone had looped string around the throttle. Kyle, off-screen, screamed surprise inspection, and burst from a stack of packing peanuts, wielding a megaphone. The whole prank was being live-streamed to the company's internal Slack channel. Jose slipped and slammed his elbow into the lockout/tagout override panel on the wall. That's when I noticed the LED warning light was off. That panel's supposed to flash red if bypassed. And it was dark. I stood. My legs moved before my brain did. I grabbed my badge and jogged down the stairs, heart thudding like it was trying to warn me ahead of time. By the time I got to the loading dock, Jose was sitting against a crate, pale and shaking. Few techs huddled around him. Someone handed him a bottle of water. Kyle was filming himself doing a victory dance next to the still rolling forklift, chanting gotcha, gotcha like a drunk birthday clown. Where's the LO/2 indicator? I asked quietly. No one answered. I walked over to the panel. The bypass key was inserted, turned to the override position. I tapped the display dead. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just took out my phone, snapped a photo of the panel, the key, and the timestamp on the wall-mounted clock. I walked back upstairs, closed the door to the office, sat at my desk, and opened my log. April 11, 2:42 p.m. LO/2 alarm disabled during prank. Forklift released without driver. Bypass key active. No warning light engaged. Photo taken. Witnesses, Jose R., floor tech, multiple unidentified staff. I submitted the report via the internal safety portal under incident reporting immediate hazard. Then I did what I'd never done before. I exported the report to PDF and emailed a copy to a burner Proton Mail account synced to my personal drive. Then I uploaded the photos to a private cloud folder labeled Lodo Evidence. 5 minutes later, Kyle burst into the office like Kramer on Red Bull. You filed a report? Yes, I said. There was a safety system disabled. Someone could have been hurt, he scoffed. Jesus, Catherine, it was just a prank. You're gonna get Jose written up for panicking now? I'm going to document what happened, that's all. You always do this, he sneered, voice rising as more people filtered into the hallway. You act like you're the only adult in the building. No wonder morale sucks when you're around. Then, loud enough for half the team to hear, it was just a prank, so what? I could feel my face flush, but not from shame. From restraint. The kind that burns behind your teeth when you want to scream, but instead just hit save as. When he walked out, still muttering about compliance Karens, I reopened the portal. I marked the report escalation level. Level 3 bypass of critical system, then I clicked a little checkbox labeled Notify Regulatory Liaison Optional and left it blank. For now, HR warning landed in my inbox like a wet slap. Subject line, constructive feedback follow-up, body text, 5 bullet points of corporate tofu, so flavorless it almost masked the rot underneath. Concerns regarding interpersonal approach, pattern of rigidity around evolving team dynamics, failure to support morale-enhancing initiatives. The last line was the kicker. Kyle reports a persistent negativity that is beginning to impact team cohesion. Please consider this a formal notice and opportunity for improvement. Right, because almost being impaled by a rogue forklift really brings people together. I didn't respond, just stared at the screen for a full minute, wondering if anyone at HQ had ever stepped foot in a warehouse that didn't have catered breakfast Fridays and lavender diffuser pods in the break room. I printed the email, slipped it into a red file folder, labeled it Retaliation, Soft Format. Next morning, my calendar was wiped. Floor audits, reassigned. Pre-shift safety walkthroughs, gone. My new task list read like a punishment chore wheel, inventory shelf labeling, backlogged email cleanup, and digitizing archived SDS sheets from 2009. Kyle started assigning safety tours to interns. Literal interns, kids who still asked if they could microwave cup noodles in metal bowls. I wasn't fired, just faded out, like a dead battery someone forgot to toss. The staff saw it too. Rico gave me a silent nod one morning, his way of saying, I see you. Marcy from scheduling stopped by with coffee, said nothing, and left a donut on my desk that wasn't part of the Friday stash. But there were others watching too. HR reps suddenly checking in. A new comms intern who just happened to sit near my cubicle and always had her phone camera slightly tilted my direction. I knew what this was. They were waiting for me to break, to yell, to give them a reason to move from red folder to pink slip, so I adapted. I stopped filing reports through the portal, started logging everything offline. Untrained forklift driver at Dock 7, 4/16, 1:22 p.m. no certification badge, unsupervised operation. Camera 3 system log shows manual deletion, 4/19, 5:47 p.m., only files from 4/11 to 4/13 missing. LO/to bypass logged but not reset, 4/22, 3:08 p.m. Kyle present. Every entry had a timestamp. Every violation cross-referenced with our own training manual and OSHA codebook. And I gave the file a name. 1910.147 Violations PDF, named after the very regulation they were dancing on like it was a gym mat instead of a federal law. I didn't talk to anyone about it, didn't gossip in the bathroom, didn't post vague LinkedIn updates about toxic leadership and quiet quitting. I just typed, documented, compiled. Kyle, for his part, seemed thrilled. He strutted through the building like he'd finally exorcised his compliance demon. Started holding manager mindset Mondays, which mostly involved him live streaming motivational rants from the forklift cage while chugging Celsius and quoting Joe Rogan. He even installed a disco ball in the central aisle. Said it was to encourage joyful transitions between workstations. We had 3 near misses that week. One temp got vertigo from the strobe reflection and knocked over a pallet stack. Another slipped on a glitter slick from Confetti Thursday and almost lost an eye to a dangling pallet hook. I logged every incident. Every bypassed lockout, every ignored certification, every hallway meeting where Kyle joked about deleting evidence before the feds come knocking. He thought he was untouchable, and maybe he was. I'd seen too many like him survive off charisma and convenience. But systems don't lie. Timestamps don't lie. The blinking little cursor on a report field doesn't care about your job title, so I kept writing. Quiet, precise, because sometimes being sidelined just gives you a better view of the wreckage as it builds. It was called the Warehouse Games, like we were all contestants on some discount streaming show filmed in a shipping container with liability waivers taped to the doors. Kyle hyped it for 2 weeks straight, flyers on every bulletin board, Slack emojis, even a 45-second promo video with dubstep drops and flashing text that read, trust, speed, fun, the rules. Obstacle courses made from pallets, shrink-wrap races, relay lifts, and a mystery event that was supposedly too cool to describe ahead of time. The kicker, it was mandatory. He framed it as a non-optional bonding experience for cross-functional synergy, which is HR speak for if you don't show up, we'll find a way to ding your review. They cleared the main floor, moved production forward to the graveyard shift, taped over every caution zone, hung disco strobes from the catwalk beams. I was assigned to monitor hydration stations. Translation, stand by a fold-out table of Gatorade and stay out of sight. I stood there, clipboard in hand, pretending not to notice the unanchored ladders, the exposed wires near the loading dock, or the fact that Kyle had duct-taped a speaker to the forklift cage and was blaring EDM remixes of classic rock songs at seizure-inducing volume. I watched interns in hard hats 3 sizes too big sprint across waxed concrete while Kyle screamed forklift frenzy into a megaphone, and then the floor started screaming back. Not metaphorically, literally. The auto shutdown alarm on the packing machine started wailing. Piercing fast. That's only supposed to trigger if something's moved while in maintenance mode, which it was. Then I saw it. A temp, new kid, maybe 20, wide-eyed and alone, climbed up on the inspection platform. He thought it was part of the obstacle course. His shoe hit a bypassed fail-safe switch, and the conveyor under him jerked alive with a mechanical snap like a mousetrap the size of a picnic table. He slipped, one foot still caught in the ladder rung, and the whole damn thing began to roll forward, dragging him sideways, right into the path of the pneumatic press. I dropped the Gatorade jug, bolted past the hydration banner, slammed the master kill switch on the east wall. The press stopped mid-cycle. Inches, he didn't scream. Just sat there breathing like someone who'd been underwater too long, face pale, hands trembling. Kyle came jogging over like he was arriving at a party late. "Whoa, damn you okay, bro?" He laughed, crouching beside the temp. "Yo, that was wild. Totally thought we had the safety lock on." He looked at me. Grinned. "Chicks got the reflexes though, huh? No harm, no foul." My voice didn't rise, I just said the bypass shouldn't have been active. This wasn't a game station. That switch is tagged for inspection. Kyle waved me off. "We'll handle it. No need to escalate, okay? Don't make it a thing." I looked around. HR was there. The intern with the iPad was there. Half the team stood frozen, waiting to see who'd blink first. I nodded. "Sure," I said, but I already knew what I was going to do. That night, after the cleanup crew left and the music died and Kyle went off to edit his little highlight reel, I sat at my desk. Closed the door. Opened the file. 1910.147 violations PDF now clocked in at 67 pages. I drafted a new cover sheet. 2. OSHA Anonymous Reporting Division, subject, pattern of lockout/tagout violations at redacted site, attached. Supporting documentation, photos, time logs, and video stills in the body. I wrote, "I am submitting this report due to a persistent, escalating pattern of violations involving disabled lockout/tagout systems, falsified floor safety certifications, and retaliatory practices against internal reporting. A recent near-miss incident during an unsanctioned warehouse event involved a press machine and an untrained temporary worker. Evidence attached." I stripped metadata, encrypted the file, masked my IP with a VPN, and hit send, not because I wanted revenge, but because I had finally accepted one ugly truth: they were never going to fix it themselves. The email hit the main inbox at 7:13 a.m. on a Wednesday, and you could feel the oxygen get sucked out of the building by 7:15. Subject, OSHA site visit today at 9 o'clock a.m. Unannounced, there's a very specific silence that follows a message like that. It's not confusion, it's recognition. A gut-deep understanding that someone somewhere has kicked the wrong hornet's nest. Kyle's Bluetooth speaker was the first casualty. No more Can I remixes echoing from the forklift cage. No more Warehouse Warrior Wednesdays. The disco ball was quietly unbolted from the mezzanine. The intern who normally filmed TikToks in the stockroom started folding safety vests instead. Kyle didn't strut that morning. He hovered, barked short orders like he'd just watched one episode of Undercover Boss and thought he'd absorbed managerial gravitas through osmosis. By 8 o'clock a.m., the whiteboard was wiped clean of all fun initiatives. The only thing scrawled in black expo marker was, everything looked normal. At 8:24 a.m., I got the calendar invite. HR check-in 8:30 a.m. Confroom B. Karen from HR greeted me like I was her emotionally volatile cousin at Thanksgiving. Fake warm, teeth too tight, eyes darting like she was waiting for camera crew to jump out and yell gotcha. "We've just noticed a tone lately," she said, hands folded in her lap. "Some team members are feeling, stifled, like morale has taken a dip, and we just want to be proactive." "Because of me?" I asked. Calm, flat, like a radio dial turned to low volume. She gave the smile of someone who's already picked out a condolence card. "We're all part of the vibe, you know?" I nodded slowly. "I understand completely." I could have said more. About what it felt like to be told I was the problem while watching untrained kids dodge pallet jacks on the live feed. About the surreal cruelty of being punished for caring whether people got crushed. But I didn't. I just smiled. That I'd try to radiate more warmth. Then I went back to my desk. Opened the final copy of the PDF, 92 pages, inline hyperlinks, a summary index, zip file with annotated floor plan violations, labeled frame-by-frame screenshots, and a folder titled Video Evidence with 10 timestamp clips. At 8:57 a.m., I attached it to a new message. To OSHA Field Compliance Officer, Region 5. CC, Corporate Legal External Counsel Contact. BCC, Secure Archive Subject. Follow-up to Anonymous Report Lodo Violations, Body. Attached is the full log of reported and unreported safety violations observed over the past 7 months. Supporting documentation includes date/time metadata, digital logs, visual proof, and references to specific language in OSHA, Standard 1910.147. Please note, today's site conditions have likely been altered to conceal ongoing violations. Prior conditions are detailed and attached. I hit send, then I exhaled. Not relief, not triumph, resolve. The kind that builds when you've held your tongue too long, watched too many corners get cut, too many people shrug off danger like it was just a scheduling hiccup. I stood, adjusted my badge, walked calmly to the main floor, and waited. Because sometimes justice doesn't arrive with sirens. Sometimes it just walks in wearing a clipboard and steel-toed boots. At exactly 9 o'clock a.m., the front security desk buzzed. 3 people entered. No smiles, no hesitation. They wore standard field gear, khaki pants, navy OSHA windbreakers, and the air of people who weren't here to make friends or small talk. One of them held a clipboard. Other 2 wore safety glasses like it was already clear they wouldn't be taking Kyle's word for anything. The receptionist offered coffee. They declined. Kyle materialized in the lobby 30 seconds later, eyebrows up, palms open, the human embodiment of, hey, how can I spin this? Welcome, appreciate you guys dropping in. Big fans of safety around here. The lead inspector didn't look up from his clipboard. He'll be conducting an unannounced review of equipment protocols, maintenance logs, and operator certifications. We'll also need immediate access to camera records, LOTO documentation, and training files for all active personnel. Kyle blinked. Sure, absolutely. Just, give me a sec to coordinate the, digital access. He turned and hissed something toward the floor manager, who immediately started fake typing like her keyboard was on fire. Inspector turned to the other 2 agents and handed one a printed sheet. You'll begin at the east floor. Verify machine tags and override locks. Check all operator badges for this week's shifts. Kyle cleared his throat, trying to wedge himself into their orbit. I can walk you through our floor setup. We do things a bit differently. Start with vibe, then process, sir. The inspector interrupted. You're not on the list of authorized safety personnel. Please step aside. And that was that. By 9:17 a.m., they were on the floor. Cameras scanned, tags checked, vests flipped. I stood at the edge of the mezzanine, arms crossed, not smug, not vengeful, just still. At 10:06 a.m., the inspector called for a meeting in the boardroom. Kyle was already pale. HR looked like someone had canceled Christmas. Legal was called in, not in-house, corporate's legal. Man with horn-rimmed glasses and a laptop that probably cost more than Kyle's car. He sat, opened the device, and pulled up the file already waiting in his inbox. The inspector cleared his throat and began to read. Per submitted documentation, page 14, line 3, April 11th, forklift operated in bypass mode with LO/to alarm disabled. Witnessed by multiple staff. Panel recorded no warning indicator. He flipped a page. Page 23, line 5. April 22nd, video feed shows camera log deletions occurring at 5:47 p.m. Files from 3-day period missing. Then he looked up. Pages 61 through 77 describe the warehouse games incident, including attached photographic evidence of untrained operators and a failed lockout resulting in a near-miss fatality. He held up the full file. 1910.147, he said flatly. Lockout/tagout, federal mandate. You violated it continuously, knowingly, and with retaliation against the internal reporter. Kyle tried to sputter something, some half-digested sentence about team culture, morale, misunderstandings. But the inspector had already turned to the legal rep. Given the dates and number of days under which these violations were active, and given that none were remediate prior to this visit, he tapped his clipboard with one clean, dry finger. That's a $700,000 fine per day. Retroactive. The legal rep's face didn't move, just a slow, deliberate blink. Then he reached up, closed his laptop like a coffin lid, and exhaled through his nose. No one said a word. Kyle's mouth hung open. The HR director reached for a bottle of water and missed it. I didn't flinch. Just stood there, still and quiet, as the storm finally touched down. No one looked at me. But every person in that room knew, because my initials were on every page. Kyle tried to recover the way people do when they've never had to face actual consequences, by doubling down on charm and word salad. It was clearly a miscommunication, he said, hands gesturing like he was orchestrating empathy out of thin air. We had rotating personnel on floor protocols. Some training delays, couple tech hiccups. Nothing malicious, obviously. We're all aligned on safety. The OSHA inspector didn't blink, didn't nod. Just reached into his folder and pulled out a stapled packet, 10 pages, printed email headers in bold, each one timestamped. Top page from KL, Facilities Compliance to Safety at CorpMailNet CC, HR at CorpMailNet date, April 11, 3:03 p.m. Subject, Loto bypass immediate hazard. The body detailed the forklift incident. The bypassed alarm. The attached photos. Each one time-stamped. Each one tagged to a digital audit trail now held in the inspector's hand. Kyle squinted at the page like it had betrayed him personally. I don't remember seeing that one come through. HR, seated beside him, shifted like someone slowly realizing they were now in the blast radius. We never received that report, Karen said, voice brittle. We track all safety concerns in the portal. There's no record of, the inspector raised one hand. The email was delivered to your inbox. Opened. Logged. IP trace confirms it was accessed from this building's internal network less than 20 minutes after it was sent. He flipped to another page, and here, April 22, camera logs manually deleted. Bypass codes manually entered. The system generated its own backup logs. Did you think you could clear them entirely? The silence that followed wasn't just uncomfortable, it was radioactive. Kyle leaned back like he was trying to melt into the wall. Karen's eyes darted toward the hallway like someone expecting fire to erupt from the floor. The inspector continued, tone flat as concrete. These are not one-time errors. These are recurring, deliberate actions that violate multiple federal safety standards. You failed to remediate known issues, retaliated against internal reporting, and permitted unqualified staff to operate heavy machinery in restricted zones. He paused. We're escalating this to federal review. Karen opened her mouth, then closed it again. Kyle tried one last pathetic flourish. Look, whoever's behind this document dump or whatever, they clearly didn't understand our internal chain of command. Maybe they weren't trained properly. You know how some people can twist things. The inspector turned a page slowly and deliberately. There, at the bottom of the summary index, were the letters KL, typed on every page, watermarked into the footer. Not hidden, just quietly, irrevocably present. He looked at Kyle, then at legal. Your leadership allowed this. Your systems enabled this, and now your consequences are formalized. The legal rep didn't speak. He just wrote something down, then turned to Karen and said, get your external counsel on the phone. Now, no one looked at me. No one had to, because the initials told the story. I sat still. Expression neutral. Back straight, it wasn't satisfaction. Not exactly. It was something deeper. Older. The kind of quiet knowing you only earn when you've been told over and over that you're wrong until the world finally stops pretending. Then, as chaos unfurled, phones vibrating, legal pads flipping open, Kyle turning redder than the emergency beacon he once unplugged, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No voicemail. Just a simple banner. North Division Compliance, External Ops. I didn't answer. Not yet. I just stared at the screen and let the building burn behind me. The board call was already in progress when the legal rep interrupted. No warning. Just leaned in, tapped the COO's shoulder, and murmured something that made the man flinch like he'd just been handed a subpoena dipped in gasoline. Need you off the call, the lawyer said flatly. Now. The COO glanced at the Zoom tiles, at the CEO's puzzled face, then back at the room of pale, sweating department heads. He stood without a word, removed his headset, and walked out like a man heading into a storm with no umbrella. Behind him, the meeting fell silent. The OSHA lead cleared his throat. To summarize, 7 separate days of confirmed violations under CFR 1910.147, each carrying a maximum daily penalty of $700,000. He set down the document, tapped the table once, and said, that brings your total, pending federal confirmation, to $4.9 million. No one moved. Kyle, now seated at the far end of the table, eyes down, looked like a wax statue left too close to a radiator. The CEO, who joined late from corporate HQ, leaned forward slowly, his voice so quiet the room had to stop breathing to hear it. Who kept the original logs? No one answered. He looked around. HR dropped their gaze. Legal pretended to read. Kyle opened his mouth but couldn't summon a syllable. The inspector pushed a final page across the table. We're entering formal federal review next week. You'll need a new compliance officer in place immediately to avoid operational shutdown. The CEO read the name printed in 11-point font. Catherine L. Then he nodded. Offer her whatever she wants. Title, salary, remote, full authority. By the time I got the formal email, the fire had already burned through the building. Not literal, but close. Kyle, suspended pending investigation. Karen from HR, reassigned to another region with leadership development counseling. Half the digital systems flagged for third-party audit. And me? The offer came in at 11:14 a.m. Senior Compliance Lead National Operations, location, remote Cleveland HQ optional. Salary, $198,500 plus full benefits plus discretionary bonus. Start. Immediately, no apology. No, we were wrong. Just the kind of clean, clinical capitulation that only happens when lawyers have finally been allowed to speak. I read it twice. Then open the folder on my personal drive, 1910.147 violations PDF, the evidence file, the backups, the screenshots. I selected all. Right-click, delete, not because I was erasing it, but because I didn't need it anymore. It had served its purpose. I logged off the warehouse network for the last time at 11:46 a.m., and just as I shut the lid on my laptop, my phone pinged. Calendar reminder, OSHA recertification training lead instructor, virtual session at 1:00 p.m. I smiled once. Just once. Then I stood up, stretched my arms, and walked away from the ashes. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes again.